What's up, y'all? I am LTJ Reeds. This is Throwing Light. And if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Let's kick it over to tonight's guest. We've got Chuck King over in Fort Lauderdale, which I had the honor of getting to hang out with Chuck in December when I went over there. And I had a good time with y'all. Wish I had hung out with y'all like every night, but
It
like
can
the
be a
first
lot of.
so I got in late, like that first night. I still got late, and then the second night I was so tired. But I want to come back and I want to hang out more. I had a good time with y'all. Uh,
Absolutely.
so Chuck, you were on Throwing Lights, and I'm so glad to have you here. Why don't we go ahead and just tell everybody, who you are and how you got involved in the community.
Sure. So I grew up in Wisconsin. I the first leather bar I ever went to was in Chicago, to a place called Deke's Place, which is no longer there, unfortunately. Sleazy little kind of a basement bar kind of place. And then I went to a place called the Manhole that was open. And I had a fake ID when I was 19, so I used my brother's credentials to get me into some places when I was young, and that's kind of how I sort of stepped into the gay world and the leather scene and that sort of thing, because the leather thing had always intrigued me ever since I can remember. But eventually I moved to Los Angeles. I was there just for a couple of years, moved to Vegas. I was there for about 11 years. And through that time, I really started kind of coming out, came into my own. I was really stupid and naive when I moved to Los Angeles when I was just barely 21. And I grew up real fast, as one does, moving from Wisconsin to Los Angeles. And the first I can remember my very first experience of going to a leather bar in LA. I worked with a couple of gay guys in a men's department at a clothing store, a retail store. And they said, "Hey, we know you're interested in going to the Silver Lake leather bars. Let's take you." And I was, kind of really scared and kind of nervous and whatever. But they wanted to take me to a place called the Gauntlet, which I had heard of and looked up, as much as I could back in the day when you didn't really have internet and stuff like that, and really wanted to go, but was scared to death. So they said, "Why don't you meet us at the Mexican restaurant? We'll have dinner and then we'll go for drinks." So they told me to wear a pair of boots and a t-shirt and jeans, and so I went to the Mexican restaurant. One of the guys that was supposed to meet us, he wasn't there, and the person that I met, we had dinner, and then he said he was going to meet Sam was his name. We were going to meet Sam at the Gauntlet. So we went to the Gauntlet finally, and the first guy kind of deserted me and said, "Oh, I've got to go to the bathroom," and they had planned this all out. And while I'm just kind of wallflowering up against the wall and surrounded by all these fucking hot leather men, but scared to death and practically ready to crap myself, this leather man comes walking by with glasses and the cover and the whole leather outfit and everything, and he looks to me and says, "What's going on, boy?" And I about crap myself, and I was like, "Nothing, sir," and I didn't know what to do or how to react or how to respond. And then he pulled his glasses off and he goes, "Hey, girl, it's Sam." It was the other person that worked at the department store with me. So that was my real introduction into the leather. So it was kind of really cool because it kind of showed me that you have to have a sense of humor about it. You can't take yourself too seriously, and so it was a really good introduction. But from there, I grew into my own. I started. I've always been in the casinos and nightclubs and hospitality industry, and eventually moved to the Mid Atlantic. I got my first bar manager gig and started planning major events. I created a nonprofit organization, which was focusing on raising money for HIV at that time. But we've expanded out, and it's been in existence for I think about 16 years now. Raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity. I've since left that organization, and I moved to Florida eventually. I'm the general manager of the Eagle, one of the owners as well. There are six of us that own the building and the not the building but the business, and so I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And I plan lots of different events: Florida Leather Week, Bears Bikers and Mayhem, which is in the Mid-Atlantic. I plan Bear Week, Lauderdale Tropical Bear Week here in Florida, and I'd love to dabble and get my hands in any kind of thing that supports the community and betters our community. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Got some things I want to go. I want to go back to not taking yourself seriously because I haven't had this discussion, but I do want to focus on the fact that you're not in Fort Lauderdale. You're in Wilton Manors,
Yes, yeah,
and some people may not know, but Wilton Manors is its own town.
right, right.
Um,
It's a small town. It's really they call it the Island City because we are surrounded by waterways. But it's basically it's surrounded by Fort Lauderdale. So Fort Lauderdale is all around us, and then Wilton Manors is in the center of it.
what's it like being in a community that has that kind of, there aren't a whole lot of um, LGBTQ plus towns.
Right.
You're in Florida. Um, are you in a bubble? That's my question. Do
Oh,
you do you get to represent yourself as a leather person outside of Wilton Manors very much?
when I travel, I do most places that I go to and travel with. Whether it's with myself
Florida,
or my partner.
in Florida specifically, in Florida.
Uh, in Florida, Florida's hot, right? So, I mean, it's not often that we get to dress up in full leathers and go to an event. Of course, there's Florida Leather Week, but that's in November. Temperatures are cooler, and then there's some other events in January, February. But those events tend to be in the cooler months because then at least you can wear some leather, even though you're still sweating your ass off. You can wear some leather and feel fairly comfortable in it. But when I travel, my partner and I went to Spain last fall. Neither of us had really been to Barcelona and like Bear Week and stuff like that. So we did some parts of Spain, and then we ended up at Bear Week. And we both took leather. And even though it was a warm climate, we got to wear a lot, leather. Whether hooking up or just hanging out or going to some of the events, we'd always have our leather vests in tow or whatever we were wearing, boots, whatever. So I try to, whenever we travel, there's always some kind of leather function or leather bar or something that we'd like to go to and visit. So we always bring some leather along no matter what. And of course, when I go back home to Wisconsin, and like the Chicago area and stuff, you can almost always wear leather except for maybe at 3 months out of the year. So we try and travel with leather as much as possible.
Being in, you know, do you find that community issues, or I don't know if it's the right word, more concentrated, being that you are in a predominantly gay town? Like, um, do you find it? Um, I don't know what I'm trying to. Do you find it? I don't think the word easier is what I'm looking for, but um, how does it feel to have that large of a community, like have a town that supports and you get to be like, what is that? How does that feel? That because like a lot of people that are gonna be watching this too, like we have no idea what it's like to actually be in a functionally ran town by the gay population, and that's a really cool thing. I mean, you have your own police station, I saw, fire station, all of that, right?
Right.
What's that like? A lot of people don't know what that's like. Do you feel like you have more access to things of that are related to queer people? Obviously more so than people outside of it. Do you guys have more queer events? Do you do like how does the town function throughout the year?
Sure. So we are depending upon how you look at it, I look at it as a very positive thing. I think I'm very lucky to live in a bubble that I'm surrounded by my leather folk, my leather family, my bear community, all the queers that are around us. It's I'm very lucky to be able to live in a place like this. A lot of people think um, because it's Florida that we, often suffer from, the government choices here. But a lot of the LGBT related government choices that we don't like to see and usually get knocked down in the courts are our county as well as Miami-Dade County, they don't usually recognize those things. Like, for example, when DeSantis put the transgender, you can't perform on a stage, crap out there. If you brought a child or whatever to a drag show, you could like be thrown in jail, whatever. Our county and the county below us, Miami-Dade, they never recognized that. So there was nobody getting arrested, nobody, no problems. We weren't getting raided or anything like that. And of course, those things got knocked out because it's freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and they cannot control those things. They've learned the hard way as much as they want to. Um, but being in a bubble, yeah. So you have to really sort of pay attention to our surroundings on the outside of our bubble as well as the inside of our bubble. We're more of a target, unfortunately, than a lot of small town cities that might have just a gay bar. We have many of them and we're plentiful of them. And, we have two leather bars and all kinds of regular queer bars and dance clubs and you name it. So it's great that we have this great sense of community. There's a lot of involvement. There's a lot of entertainment that's gay related. Finding gay doctors and clinics that specialize, just for LGBT folk. Whether you're trans, whether you're gay, whether you're lesbian, whatever, we have all of those things pretty much at our fingertips here, which is a really great thing. It's a blessing. Um, but again, we're a target. So we, unfortunately, because of where we are, and especially where the Beagle sits that I manage, we're right in the center of Wilton Drive, which is like the main thoroughfare with all the gay bars on it. Not all of them, but a lot of them are pretty much on that strip. And there's probably at least 15 of them. We have to stay in contact with the local police, which a lot of the police force is gay. So they understand, a lot of our needs and the protections that we need to have. But, when we have our gay prides, they have to literally put sharpshooters on the roofs. They have to have, bomb squads out, outside of, the gates, with, bomb sniffing dogs, and they have to, go through the festival, make sure there's nothing planted. So we have to take a lot of extra precautionary steps to hold events, which, they're used to that. They're in regular contact with the FBI. Whenever there's threats, and there's often even threats from overseas, from Middle Eastern countries and things like that don't want to see us express ourselves and would rather, see us oppressed like they do in so many countries. So we're very lucky. I'm very blessed to live here. I love Wilton Manors. I often tell people, if you hate my government and you hate DeSantis, it's better to write or support, gay organizations that fight him rather than, don't come visit us, because then you're just hurting us. You're hurting the gay businesses. You're hurting the gay community itself. So that's pretty much what I'd have to say about that.
That's great. That's like super, super informative, and that's a lot. And the thing is that I there are so many of us that don't know what it's like to be targeted, or truly understand that. And I don't want to use privilege on everyone, but sometimes it's a privilege thing. And this is a double-edged sword. You have the privilege of living in this great community that is of you and like you and caters to people of you. But at the same time, there are these external threats to this microcosm that you have created there. Um, I want to jump over. You made a comment saying not to take yourself too seriously, and I this popped in my head recently about being a Leatherman, and me going to my day to day feeling I need to like prove myself and my worth and my commitment to the community, and I think I missed out on a lot of fun during my title year. I don't think I'll let myself have as much, and I'm still working on that because the things that are happening to us are so serious and so I have a sense of urgency in my spirit, Chuck, and it's not going away. And um it hurts me to see people that not have that sense of urgency. And during my title year, and to some extent, sometimes I'm frustrated when I hear from mentors, hey, I think we need to have gender neutral titles or say something like that. And the get the pushback, well, that sounds good in theory, but it's not going to happen. And I don't think things are going to happen, but even me going out, I mentioned to some of my mentors, I want to go down to 4th Street in Austin and talk to the bars and that stop this whole like signing NDAs and these performers can't go to that. Let's put that away. Like, and they're like, well, good luck. It's not going to do it. And it's like, I am doing these things. I am working with people. I'm doing the things, and when I come back and I'm like, I'm doing it, they're like, oh, okay, but it's like, I don't feel like we need to discourage each other and wanting to try, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, though, this is life. Life is short, and we need to enjoy our lives, right? But how can we have fun as leather people, or and not just leather people, but how can we have fun right now specifically? How can we be serious and not too serious? Does that make sense?
Sure, sure. So, the seriousness that we need to focus on right now is we have to go back to the table, and we do have to fight again. And we have many of us. I'm going to be 53. I've been fighting for gay marriage rights and just gay rights in general and trans rights and all these different things ever since I was in my early 20s, since I was able to really think about it and really get involved after I was comfortable enough to come out. Because the last thing I wanted was to be on TV by accident and have some family member going, "Oh my God, he's on TV." But so just when you think we've come to a point in our history, in our time, especially in 2025, you would not think that we would have to possibly fight for our rights again. But they are trying to erode away our rights. That's the reality of it. I think there's a lot of confusion, which I think they want that. I think they work very hard to make us as confused as possible. With all the different little tidbits of information they throw out in the news just to get a reaction and stuff like that. You have to really, really dull down your news and where it comes from and focus on things that matter. But our rights is really important. So we can't stop fighting. We have to continue to be serious about that, but we can also have fun while we're doing that. We can go to gay pride events. We can march. We can, go to DC and make a difference and stand up for ourselves. So we do have to very much participate and be serious about it because we don't want to go backwards. And it's going to take all of us to fight together to make that so it doesn't happen. But we need to also have fun, and we need to love and embrace and have fun and find the connections that we have because we all have so much in common, and the things that we don't have in common we can learn from each other. So you have to find those connections and make the fun for yourself, but you can go have fun. It's funny when you say you didn't have as much fun during your title year as you may have hoped. And I find that with a lot of title holders. I've been producing contests for a very long time, and I still produce, 2 of them. So, title holders sometimes can take themselves too seriously, but they have to take them seriously because if they're going to compete, they have to put their best foot forward. And as there are some competitors that come into it, and they just kind of by the seat of their pants, they just go for it, and they don't really do any research. They don't look for any mentors because they don't really know that when you compete for a title, it can be very difficult and it can be very serious. But you know they so yeah, I totally understand what you're saying with that. I think that happens to a lot of title holders, and I think that because of protocol and so many things, and image, I think title holders don't let themselves have as much fun as they normally could. So maybe there's a way that they can find some more humor in themselves and some more fun in their world while they're still trying to represent well whatever entity they're representing. But yeah, I see that all the time. I totally understand what you're saying.
So again, it's like I'm in my pro sash life, and I think that maybe some things that maybe title holders might struggle is the comparing to others and what others are doing, and I think that can detour you from what you truly want to do. Because we're all supposed to be unique, and we're supposed to, and not just wearing sashes, but we all can bring something to the community. But definitely when it comes to producing contests, we know how serious that is. And so, Chuck, my next go to here is that, look, I've judged 4 contests now, and you pray to get through them, and there's no controversy, and there's no, you just pray, because of the first one, I had controversy and it affected me. I'm like going and judging them, like, because the way we take contests so seriously in our community, but I'm here telling you about all these things that are like, I doubt highly in Wilton Manors you have people going around saying LGB without the T. That couldn't be helping in your community, right? The trans people are still, I mean, they are us. They are the community. Um, it's interesting. It's interesting. So how do you think that we can move forward in a together fashion, um that also helps elevate the conversations that we're having? How do we get people in leather to have this fight in them that doesn't doubt that we can see gender neutrality? Like, how can we spread the amount of community and resources that, let's say, that Wilton Miners has as an old, like, how do we bring more people into our community? How do we keep people united? How do we keep trans people feeling safe? How do we know that we're being targeted? I would hope at this point everybody understands we're being targeted. It's just kind of like, why are we not putting that energy into calling out when there's not representation on a judging panel? Like, Chuck, I struggle so much because of the drama that happens in between contests. I've been out of the 4 contests, 2 of them, the sashes were taken away because of not vetting. I learned, I didn't know what I was getting into when I did my first competition. And the first competition I did, there were 4 contestants, and 3 of them had the, like, I came to the judge, I didn't know. Everyone came with their research, what this person had posted, that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was so serious.
Mhm.
And I see people in the community constantly calling out because some contest doesn't have this representation, or someone's been on the judging panel that wasn't vetted. And it's just like, why are we doing this and doing the energy this way in this fashion? But the minute I'm like, what I'm struggling with, let's create a symbol that makes unity so we can keep the community together. No, we don't want to put energy in that. We want to put energy in pointing out how a contest is failing the community. Does that make sense? I don't think our priorities are in the right place, personally.
Yeah, it's a man, that's a whole ball of wax, right? So, um, every I shouldn't say every judge panel, every producer of a contest should do their very best to have a well represented panel, as much as possible. In some cases, it may not be as possible. It depends on maybe where you're located. I mean, I'm lucky because in Florida, everybody wants to come to Florida, so it's very easy for me to get a very well represented, very well rounded judging table. But it's hard, and this past year, I ran into a little bit of that where I had a particular judge, and nobody needs to know names or anything like that, but a particular judge, had said some things, um, vocally, and not even anywhere around here because he wasn't from this area at all, and somebody was offended by it and took it in a specific way. And then, of course, I always do my due diligence whenever somebody, tells me that I may have an issue with a particular judge on a judging panel. I'm going to, of course, dive right into it. I don't waste time on that because if there's if there's a problem and somebody does need to be removed because maybe they said something that was transphobic or whatever the case may be, I do want to handle that immediately. And it turns out that from my understanding and from every person that I talked to, it was because there was a language barrier, and that sometimes that the right words, because English was not the first language of this particular judge, that some things were taken out of context, and nobody could, even though a couple people said, "Oh, you should remove this judge," nobody could give me a real hard reason as to why. Exactly. So I let that person stay on the judging panel. It turned out perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever. Of course, when those things come up, I try to get that information in advance, but it's hard, especially when you're trying to get a well-rounded judging panel. You're trying to reach far and wide. I even tried to. I brought over a couple judges from other countries and some judges from across the country. So I always try to do the best I can, but it's hard. Um, Going back to what you're talking about with the trans issues, man, our community right now needs to take that under their wing because trans people are being so persecuted, and I can't imagine living outside of the United States where at least they have human rights protections, but they're still being murdered and they're still being stomped on essentially, and we need to get behind them, and we need to help them, and we need to do better for them because they are, man, I can't put myself in their shoes. I can be sympathetic to it, but I can't physically, mentally put myself in those shoes. So I can't even imagine what it's like. I can only, fantasize about what they go through on a regular daily basis. They have thick skin like many of us, queer individuals, because we've been through the grinder in our own ways growing up, but nothing like what the trans community is going through.
You're 100% right. Like it literally makes me physically ill to hear. I can't, I got some here. We can't say that the people are our people that are going around saying LGBT without the T. They're not our people.
Absolutely not.
And so kind of drawing that line and like, hey, you chose this side. And this is it's, but I equate it the same to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go there, but as an African American, it's like that house slave mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm in them with the house, so as long as they're taking care of me and I'm privileged, it doesn't matter what happens to the rest of y'all. Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah. It's
So
fucked
it's
up.
like throwing people under the bus because you don't want to be the target.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's what's happening. So how can we be sympathetic to that anymore? We can't. Like you're going around and working on this is evil. I don't know what else to say. This is a agenda to not focus on helping people is to control people.
Right.
Like and make them work more for less. That's all it is. Like why should we even have to like the fact that I'm like doing taxes? I'm like, hold on a second. Like you don't need my money, obviously, if you're treating me this way. Why am I responsible for paying taxes and you don't acknowledge me as a whole person? These are and it's like I feel like we need to push back on some of these things and get that strong, get that fierce. Like, hey, you're doing like this, we're not giving you our money. Like, you can't force us. Then we have an issue if you're going to force us to give up money to you who are doing us wrong.
Right.
Chuck, I want to throw you a part two interview if you will accept that. And we plan that.
Absolutely. It'd be a
There's a
pleasure.
lot here. There's a lot more that you have to offer, and so I want to kick that to you. You can redeem that interview, when you're ready or whatever. But this is an ongoing conversation, and we need more time. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would love to come back to this and do more. But I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I want to thank you for coming on here. We will talk about having you back. There's a lot of rich discussion here. I think people are gonna really love this episode. I love everything that you talked about. You seem so like just aware of everything, so it's so great. Normally towards the end of the interview, I ask my guests if there's anything that you think that we're not shedding light on that we should shed light on or we're not shedding enough light on.
Gosh, I mean, it's just such uncertain times right now, and there are literally so many distractions, and I've always been a person that feels that I'm pretty, well in the know as far as like media and stuff like that. I try to stay up on what's important to me and to my community and things like that. But it is literally so incredibly difficult to pay attention because there's just everything is going crazy across the world with the different wars. And of course our leadership in this country, I don't even want to say his name. He's not
I don't, FYI, I don't. I'll say number 47.
Okay, I'll give him that. But yeah, it's really hard. And for me to be selfish and say there's one particular thing, I mean, other than right now, we need to make sure that we take care of our community, and we really have to reach out and show some love, and we have to support each other because right now that we just need each other. And people can't stop going to events. They can't stop going to places. They can't stop going out. They got to continue as if they are not having an effect on us because we cannot let them oppress us and shut us down. And that's probably the most important message that I think I could share with my fellow community members is just keep on keeping on and we will get through this.
Yeah, just before I ended, there's the town I'm from, Lafayette, Louisiana, they closed down their only gay bar because of lack of business. But when I was
I'm sorry.
there, dude, they Republicans, they were awful, man. It's just not, they're not ever gonna, it's just not, they're not ever gonna be embraced there. And I feel like there's still that like they don't want to be stigmatized as gay people. When I was there, I was the first Pride president. They were just LGBT. They did not want the letter Q. Like they literally fought adding Q. And I'm like, I had to identify as a queer questioning person just so I could, because I had someone on my board that was that, but they laughed at the idea in that community in a gay Republican predominated area. They laughed at the letter Q. So they're laughing at the letter T too. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is what it is. Anyways, Chuck, we're at the end of throwing light. So I've now let my guests close the show out. So I'm going to count to three. And when I count to three, you're going to say, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Here we go. One, two, three.
If you're not throwing light, you're not acting right.
There we go. You did very well, Chuck. This is a good interview. Thank you. I was very engaged. It flew by.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, well, we'll wait for the return of Chuck, y'all. But that's about it. I'm LGJ Reeves. This is Throwing Light. See y'all later. Bye.